I'm about to try and do something that should not be possible. Drive an entire lap of a Formula 1 racetrack quite literally in reverse, and obviously completing a lap alone isn't enough of a challenge for me, so I'm going to try and drive one in under a minute. How am I going to do this? Well, 3 months ago I was trying to set the fastest ever lap time driven on an F1 game, and in the process of that challenge I set a lap time just under 57 seconds. So my aim is basically to lose less than 3 seconds to that lap around the Mexico City circuit, but I no longer have DRS and I have to learn a completely new track. Right, so I don't usually do this, however I think that for the context of this challenge I need to take you through the entirety of the first lap, because this is definitely going to be everyone's first time at ever seeing the Mexican Grand Prix track driven backwards. Anyway, it's now time for a quiz, and through this first corner do I A, hit the barrier, B, spin on the entry, or C, miss the apex? Well, if you answered D, all of the above, you would be absolutely on the money. Yeah, honestly, I've got absolutely no idea what I was doing there. Anyway, the workaround to the lack of the delta feature that I no longer have is I've basically created my own sector splits. And we're just going to stop the footage exactly when I make contact with the polystyrene barriers, and I've just set a time of a 24.04. And this is going to be the new reference point which I will update for the rest of this video to track my progress. Anyway, we're now going to speed up to the next sector split, and this is basically the reverse of sector 1, the normal way around this track, and I've just set a total time of exactly 44 seconds. And at this point, obviously, I was more than aware that I was going to be a long way off the 1 minute lap time. But obviously, I wasn't going to let this affect me, and trust me, I took off a lot of rear wing downforce after this lap. Anyway, it's now time for the end of the lap, and I set a lap time of a 1 minute 6.015, which I knew that I would instantly improve on. Which is exactly what I did. Going through this first braking corner on the backwards track, this time I took it with a hell of a lot more caution, and although I crashed into the barrier, the difference between that and spinning is quite literally seconds. Anyway, after this, on the exit of the stadium section, I probably should have cut the corner on the new entry to the DRS straight, but I eventually do actually learn that. Moving on, it is very difficult to gain time after this because the track is quite literally a straight of cutting corners until the new exit of the old entry to the winding section of corners. Anyway, we're now going to go into a side-by-side comparison of my current lap against my first lap, and this time I actually cut the grass, and you can see visibly how much time I have gained. And as we return to the normal camera angle and speed up to the second sector split, we're about to find out exactly how much time I've gained. In these 2 sectors alone, I had taken off a huge 1.37 seconds, and as we fade into the end of the lap, I'd improved on this gain again with more ERS usage along the main straight. I was now within 5 seconds of the overall goal, and bearing in mind I was still on the medium tyres, I was so confident that eventually I would break the 1 minute mark. So obviously I'm not going to waste your time, and after this I made 2 very minor improvements very quickly, and these eventually brought me to under 4.5 seconds away from the overall goal. This was fantastic, but I now felt like I had reached the upper limit of the medium tyres potential, and it was now time for the soft tyres, where I'm about to make a massive bit of progress. So to be honest, the progress that I initially made on these soft tyres was pretty simple. So when I started this lap, which you can see, I instantly felt like I had so much more grip, which to be fair you would expect from softer tyres, however I did not think that the impact would be this massive. So if you are unaware, when you are driving in reverse, the F1 game naturally tries to spin you around into the right direction. So I have no idea how much the difference coded within the game is between the grip levels of the soft and medium tyres in reverse. However, the only way that I could describe it is that the medium tyres felt like slicks in the wet, and it now felt like I was on hards in the dry, which I will absolutely take, considering this car is actually capable of driving this track, at least the right way round, in 57 seconds. So let's be honest, being on tyres that feel like hards aren't going to make much of a difference. Anyway, enough of my waffle. You have seen my first sector split, which was 1.3 seconds faster, and as we look to the middle sector split, I'd gained 2.64 seconds to the overall goal. This could be huge if I hold my nerve going over the grass final corners, but sadly, to be honest, I didn't exactly have a great run as I was in the wrong gear. What also made matters worse is that by the end of this straight, I was running below 10% of my ERS, which consequently reduces your top speed, and both of these errors had cost me 0.8 of a second. This is not ideal, but who am I to complain, because I've just gone from 4.4 seconds away from the overall goal to being comfortably within 3 seconds. And the best thing about this is that there is very easy time to find. And not too long after this, I had an opportunity to find this time. I was only 0.08 of a second down, leaving the end of the middle sector. However, all the time is to find going over the final grass corners and the main straight. Going over the grass, I actually stayed in 7th gear, and it was worth it because I managed to carry substantially more minimum speed, and I also timed my ERS deployment much better along the main straight. As we come up to the finish line, I knew that this was going to be a huge bit of progress, but I wasn't aware that from these couple of improvements alone, I made half a second worth of progress. I was now just over 2.1 seconds away from the sub 1 minute lap time, and I was unknowingly about to make a massive discovery. Pause. Last week I asked all of you to subscribe, and quite literally all of you did, apart from exactly one person. So if this is you, please subscribe, because this video was so confusing and difficult to create. Anyway, thank you, and back to the video. So as you can see, I am on a cooldown lap, simply to recharge my battery and cool down my tyres, but I wanted to test something out. You see, on my previous lap I was driving flat out as usual, but I was wondering if there was was any way of also cutting off the now double left-hander going over the grass. So as you can see, I went straight into theatre mode to see if there was any way that I could do this, and you're currently watching my brain click into gear as I was aware that I may have just discovered a challenge-changing racing line. So just to show you how much of a difference this new racing line is going to make, we're once again going into the side-by-side comparison angle. My current lap is the one on the right, and I mean you can already visibly see how much time I am gaining. So as we finish up the middle sector, we're just going to pause the footage here, and as you can see, I was comfortably up to my previous lap by the distance difference. And I also had an extra 13% of my battery, which is going to have a huge impact. So to be honest, it's kind of hard to commentate on extra battery being deployed, so we're going to speed up all the way until the finish line. Now, I was aware that I was about to make a serious bit of progress, however, I don't actually have a timer on my screen driving backwards, so I was unaware that I just made over a second improvement. And you best believe that I wasn't going to finish this practice session without getting within a second of the overall goal. So I am not going to waste your time, and after that lap, I made one final improvement at the end of this practice session, and I was now finally within a second of the overall goal. And I'll be honest, I was so excited to get into qualifying because I knew the grip levels were about to dramatically improve. However, Q1 was an absolute disaster. Throughout the entirety of Q1, I literally wasted every opportunity I had at making an improvement, and I was just so frustrated. This is kind of weird to explain, but looking back, I think that initially one of the main problems that I faced was that because the in-game time had changed, there were now shadows on the racetrack, and for some reason this was really messing with my perception of the racing lines. But obviously I was not going to let this hold me back, and although I didn't make any progress in Q1, I felt like I had finally got used to the shadows and I was ready to go again in Q2. And finally, at the end of Q2, after another practice lap, I was ready to go. Going through the first few corners, including the stadium section and the exit out of there, I was quite literally playing bumper cars but with the walls. However, this did seem to be working because by the time that we reached the first sector split, I'm going to be almost a quarter of a second up to the delta. Obviously though, I did not know about that, so through the rest of the reverse winding corners, I managed to clip two different barriers by taking even more risks. However, the car was still facing in the right direction, and that is all that matters. Next up is lawnmower time, and I'll be honest, I absolutely nailed these corners, and apart from a slight wobble which would have no impact, I used all of the track through these couple of corners. And this directly reflected in my lap time gain, as through the middle sector split, I was now 7/10ths up. Everything was going unbelievably well until the final grass cutting section. See, if we just pause the footage here, I'm meant to follow this racing line, which will minimise my distance of the racetrack. However, as we resume the lap, I did not do this, and this will have cost me crucial lap time, but I knew that I could still beat the overall goal on this lap. Coming up to the finish line, I had managed my battery perfectly, but sadly this would not be enough, and I crossed the line only 0.261 seconds away from the sub 1 minute lap time. To be honest, I was a little upset that I hadn't completed the challenge on that lap, however I knew exactly where the time was to find. And I also knew that grip levels would once again marginally improve in Q3. So it has all come down to me to produce a truly special lap time and do something never done before on any F1 game. I had done it. After about 25 restarted final qualifying sessions, I had successfully set a sub 1 minute lap time driving backwards on F1 24. Thank you all so much for watching. Please remember to subscribe, and I will see you all next week.